Stoichiometry allows us to determine the amount of products one can produce from a given amount of reactants. Let's use cooking as an analogy. The first step to cooking is to know the recipe. In chemistry, the recipe is the balanced chemical equation. Further on in this course, we will see how to balance any chemical reaction. In this chapter, the chemical reactions are easy to balance by just playing with the coefficients before each reactant and product. The goal is to have the same number of atoms of each element on each side of the equation. Remember, when adjusting the coefficients, you may unbalance a previously balanced element. Always do a final check. The balanced equation tells us the stoichiometric equivalences between each reactant and product. If a cake recipe requires 3 eggs to bake 1 cake, then 3 eggs and a cake are stoichiometrically equivalent. In the balanced equation, 2 moles of H2 plus 1 mole of O2 produces 2 moles of H2O. 1 mole of O2 is stoichiometrically equivalent to 2 moles of H2O. For H2 and H2O, it is 2 to 2, or a simple 1-to-1 stoichiometric relationship. In all of this, we see that the moles are the important quantity, not masses. Returning to the cooking analogy, we rarely talk of grams, but we talk of cups and teaspoons in a recipe. Chemistry is simpler, it's always in moles. Finally, if a recipe calls for 3 eggs in a cake, then a dozen eggs can only produce 4 cakes, even if you have an infinite amount of milk, sugar, and flour. We would label the eggs as the limiting reagent. The same applies to chemistry. For each reactant, figure out the number of moles you have and determine how many moles of product you could produce if this reactant was the limiting reagent. Repeat for all reactants. Now, the reactant that produces the smallest amount of product is the limiting reagent. All others are in excess. And in chemistry, one typically wants to know the mass produced, so simply multiply the number of moles of product produced by the limiting reagent by the product's molecular mass. This will give you the mass of the product produced.